Hello guys, welcome to today's tutorial where I will guide you through the process of creating a professional website for your client. Whether you're a seasoned designer or just starting out, this step-by-step guide will equip you with the knowledge needed to craft a stunning website that not only meets but exceeds your client's expectation. So in this tutorial, we will cover a lot of principles that you will need to create a website for your clients. Here I've provided the files in the description below. So we are going to learn how to set out typographies in our project and also how we can set out our colors. So here I also have some icons and then resources that we're going to be needing for this project. So if you're new to my channel, kindly hit the subscribe button. Let's get into it. After duplicating the file from the Figma community, we're going to have this particular file here which contains a page and then another page which is named resources. So I'm going to click on the resources, and when we open this we see we have from the design we're going to make, this is just an image, to the typography and then the colors. Every project has a typography. So this typography that we're having here is pretty standard and it can be reused for almost all the projects except if there's a special need. So here I've assigned the sizes of this particular typography. Here we have the display and I also have the headers and then the text. So we are going to create local variables that are going to be reusable throughout our project with this. So to do that, I'm going to be selecting few of this and I'll show you how to create local styles with this. So now we're interested in this display too. So I'm going to double click till I select the text here. Now go back to the side panel here where you see the properties of this text. So we are going to click on this icon here, styles. Then we're going to click on this plus sign here to create a style. So right now we're going to name this display 2. So if you click on more description, you'll see that Figma have already added the properties here for us, 72 bold and then the font family here. So I'm going to click on the create style here. So we have the display -2. Then I can go ahead and then select this H1 here. Make sure we're selecting this text and then we're going to perform the same action. Click on this, then the plus sign, then I will rename this to heading 1. So we can do the same for this other text here. So we have the leading. I'll double click here till I'm selecting this text. Then we click on this icon, the plus sign. Then I'll just name this leading. I'll quickly do the same for this. So I'll stop here for the text, then we can go back to our colors here. So here we have some colors that we're going to be using in this project. So you see how I arrange them, and we also have some effects here which are the shadows. Now to add this, we're going to use the same style here. So we can start with our primary color. So I'll double click on this particular color here till I'm selecting this, till you get the feel. Then click on this icon here, then click on the plus sign to add this style. So this is going to be our brand / primary color. So there's no description, we're just going to create this here. Then we can do the same for this, double click till you get the feel here. We do the same thing here, click on the plus sign. This is going to be our dark color. So here the same, double click till we select the gray color. I'm going to select this and then the plus sign here. So the name is going to be gray. This is 800. So let me add the hyphen here. We'll do the same for this. Once you're done with the colors, the next section here, what we want to add here is the effects. So if we double click on each of this item here, you can see the effects here. So now we can select this here and then click on the add effect. If you click on more description, you're going to see this. So this is going to be shadow, so small, so shadow S. So we can just use the letter S here. That's small for this. So double click here till we select this shadow box where we get to see the effect. Select this and then the plus sign here. This is going to be M for medium. Then we do the same thing for this. Double click till you're selecting this, and then we can add this effect here, which is large. Double click here, then we go down to the effects, then we can add an effect here. This is primary, or let's use the brand here, brand shadow. Then here, double click here, then we go to effect, and then we can now create this. This is going to be secondary shadow. So now we've added all the styles that we need. So to see them, you can just click outside here and you see all the styles we're going to be using for this project. So now we can go back to our page here, and then if I select this, you see we have all the styles here. So the first thing we're going to be doing here is I'm going to grab this image that I'm going to be using as a guide, and I'll bring it here and I can paste this here. So now this image will be used as a guide for this project. So the first thing I want to do is to add a frame. So I'm going to be using a MacBook Pro 14-inch. So for the height of this, I'm going to be setting that to 6,490. So that should be an approximate size. So in case we need more, I'm going to increase this here. So the first thing, after adding the height, I'm going to change the background color of this. So this time I'm going to select this and I'm going to use the gray here. So now let's start by creating our navigation bar. So now let's add a layout grid for this project. Now we can click on the plus sign here to add the layout grid. Then I'm going to select the type of grid, which is column, and then the count I'm going to be using 12. The margin, I will be setting that to 120 here. So we can now close this. So the next thing is we want to add the ruler. To add the ruler, you can click on this icon here, check your view and make sure that the ruler is checked. So once the ruler is checked, you're going to get this lines here. So I can drag one of this, drop it here, also drag this and then drop this here. So we can zoom in here to see and then make sure that this is aligned with this properly. I also do the same thing here. Once we have this, we can now hide our grid. I'll select this and then click on the icon here to hide the grid. So now whatever I'm going to do, it's going to be between these lines here in between. To add our navigation bar, I'm going to create a text here. So this is going to be, let's say, services. So I'm going to zoom in so that we can see this. Now we want to apply the styles we created earlier. To do that, I'm going to select this here and then look for medium text, which is 16. So I'm going to select this, and we can put this in an auto layout here by pressing Shift A and then convert this to a component. So this is going to be our link text. Now after having this, we can just quickly select this here and then add a property. To do that, after selecting the service text, you can click on this arrow here. So this is going to be our title. So now we can now create our navigation bar. So I'm going to click on the assets file here and then drag this service here. The next thing is to duplicate this and then have something like this, multiple of this. So here we're going to be needing other section. So if I click on this, I will add the text here, which is project. Then the next one is going to be about. Then we can have news. And then the last one will be contact. Contact here. After having this, we can put them in an auto layout by highlighting everything. So press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. So I'm going to make sure that the spacing between each of this item is 16. Now we have our first section of the navigation bar. So we can just quickly drag this and then drop it somewhere here. So let's create our logo for this project. So this is going to be BitStar, like this. Then we can just customize this to our taste. So here I'm going to use one of our colors. So after adding the BitStar here, we can change the color here to our dark. Then we're not going to be using any of the font family here. So you see I can now detach this by clicking on this. So we can customize the size of this. So I'm going to use 24 for this. So I'll select this and use 24. And then I'm going to change that to extra bold. That's for the BitStar. And then I'll drag this here. So we have our logo here as well. After having the text, we want to create this button here. So to do that, I'm going to select this and then add a text here. So let's talk. Now we're going to convert this to an auto layout by pressing Shift A. After that, we can now change some of the properties here. I'll change this to 20, and then here I can set that to 9. And then let's see the property of this text here. So now we can change this text size here to 14. 14 actually looks good. Then we can now add a field to this. So to add a field, you can select this dot here instead of the plus sign. Then we can set that to primary, and I can as well add a stroke to this, and the stroke color is also going to be primary. So I will select the 4 dot here instead and then look for the primary here. Then we can set the border radius here to 4, and then we can change the text color. Here I will be using white here. So if you don't have a white color here, you can just simply click outside here and then add a local style. Then you can select color and then name white and then pick white here. That's if you don't have the white color. Then I'm going to select this item and then make sure I'm changing the color to this white. So now we have our button. So the next thing we want to do is to create a variant for this. So now to create a variant, we have to convert this to a component. So I'll be renaming this to button. So here to create a variant, I said we convert this to a component first. Then while selecting the component, we can click on the plus sign here to create a variant. So right now, what I want to do here is I'm going to rename this variant here to BTN outline. So let's say secondary sec outline here. Outline. So now the next thing is to minus the field for this. So I'm going to minus the field for this here. And then the color of the text here, I will make sure that it's primary. And our border here, I think we don't have this color here on our design. So for the border, I think I can zoom in, select this our brown color. We can detach this, and then I can use I to just zoom in and then till I pick this color here on the image. So you need to copy the image and then paste it here. You can as well add the image. So now we have our buttons. So the next thing we want to do is to bring our buttons here, and for this font sizes here, I feel we should make them bold or semi-bold. So this is the advantage of using component. So now if I select this text here and for the style here, I can just detach this here. If I detach this, I'm having 16. So please, I'm going to convert this back to 14. After converting that to 14, then we can just use the semi-bold for this. So this looks better. So you see, I only get to do the changes here on this item. So let's bring in our buttons here. So to do that, click on the assets file and then you can drag the button and then drop that here. So I can as well Control D to duplicate this button here. So let's add the property so that we can easily change the text inside this button. To do that, double click on this item here. Make sure you're selecting the text. Once you select the text here, I can just zoom in and as well select this other text here. So let me just press this. So I'm holding shift to select this two text. So we can now change this to title of this. So coming here now, if I select this, I need to change this to, okay, let's change this. Instead of default, we can just use the BTN outline. So we can now clean this text and then just use the sign in here. So this is going to be sign in like this. So let's group this buttons together. So I'll hold shift and then select this two item, press shift A to put them in an auto layout. So the spacing between them, I'm going to use 16 here. So I will zoom in to see, so I need this to be dropped here. So we have this group already. So the first thing we need to do here is to group these two items here. Shift A to group these two items. Make sure that this is centered. So the spacing between them here, I'm just going to do 16 times 6 here. So now we have 96 for the spacing between these items. So I can select this group and then this group here. Let me zoom in so that we can all see. So I'm selecting this two group here, so I can put them in an auto layout by pressing shift A to put them in that auto layout. So I'm going to make sure that this is starting here and this also is starting here. So after having this now, I can then create a simple frame. So this frame is going to cover everywhere, say from here to here. So I'm going to convert the color, or let's add a color to this. This is going to be white here, and then the height here, I'm going to change that to 76. So after having the height to 76, I will drag this, drop this here, then select my navigation bar and then paste it inside this. So we can just align this here since this is a frame. So I'll select this item, push that to the top here, and then I will make sure that I'm dragging this here. So I can now select these items here and then make sure they are at the center of the screen here. So we now have our nav bar. So the next thing we want to add here is the hero section. So to do that, I'm going to create a frame. So I'm going to have a frame here. So I'm going to use a random color for the background of this. So let me just quickly add a fill here. So this fill, I'm not going to use white. Let's say something dark here. We're going to change this eventually. So I'm going to drag this here. So now once we have this, I want to make the height of this 820. So once we have the height of this, I will click back on this here. So let's rename this section to hero. And then here, I'll just change that to nav bar. Yeah. So we need to add an image here, and also we need to add a filter. So to do that, I'll go to my resource file here, and then I'll grab this image here. Ctrl C to copy this image, and then I will paste the image here. So you see my image is now inside the frame. So now let's create a rectangle, same size with the image. So I'm just going to make this 820 here. The image I think is already 820, so the width is going to be the same with this. So now after adding the rectangle, I will add this, convert this to a gradient here. So here we can use this image here. Since it's a gradient, I want to pick this color here, and for this ending part here, I will also pick that same color. So you can click on the eye and then pick this color here. So now we have this, and I'm going to just change the direction of this from this point. Make sure you're clicking on the dots. I'll zoom in so that you can see. You have to click on these dots to be able to move your arrows. So now we can now change the opacity for this here. So I'm changing for the first one here, so let's keep this to 60. Then here I'm going to select this, and I will also change that to a lower number here. So I'm also maintaining 60. So once we have this section here, we just need to add the text in here. So to do that, I think I've made a copy of this text here, so we can go back to this section here, and then I'm going to copy this, and then I'll bring it here and paste it here. So now let's just change the size of this text here. We can apply our style, which is the display to here. It's having the same style, so we don't see much changes. Then the next thing we need to add is the text here. So we carry out. So I think we should have the text here. So I'm going to select this here, and then copy this text, and then come in here and then look for a way to paste it. So I'm going to select this. I can just drag this somewhere here. That's for the text, and then paste this text here. So now I need to change the color of this. So here we can set that to the gray 100. So let's see if the alignment, okay, it's almost looking the same here. So I can just select here, break this, and then we have this. So after having this, we can now pick a button here again. That's the button we've created earlier. So the text here, it's start your project. So to do that, I'm just going to click here and say start your project. So I'll press enter. So we have this section done. So the only thing left here is for us to align these items. So I'm going to select item 1, 2, and then 3, and then press Shift A to put them in an auto layout, which will allow me to easily just manage this. So we're going to use 28 for this here. So once we have 28, if you select this, you can just try to align that to center with this here. So once we align that to center, we just need to add some few icons here. And we have the icons on our resources file. So I'll click back on layer, go back to resources, and we have some icons here. So I can zoom in and then select icon 1, 2, 3, and then 4, copy these items here, and then bring them back to page 1. So I'll select this here and then just paste it here and then drag them to this point here. So I can quickly just put them in an auto layout by pressing Shift A. So we can work on the spacing between them. Let me use 16 here. So we can align this to center. So we have our social media icons or links. So you can as well change this to red if you want to use the same color with this here. So the next thing is to add another section here, which is the case study. So for the case study, I'm going to come in here and then type a text here. So I'll just use our recent projects. So once I have that here, I can click on the assets here. I can click on the resources file here and then grab this arrow here. I'll copy this and then I'll come back to this page here and then paste it here. So for this, I'm going to make sure that I'm using the right size of text for this. So we can use our, select this, and then we can apply the 16 here. So on this 16, I'm going to make sure that this is as well white. So grab this text here and then I'll bring it here. So I can select these two items here and then press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. So for this item here, I think I'm going to resize this a little to fit in here. So now for the auto layout, I'll select this and then make sure they align to center. So why I want to convert this to component here is arrow text, because we are going to have variants of this. So now once we have this, I can convert this to a component and I can come in here, select this and then drag this to drop it here. So I have this here, our recent project. So we can select this two group and then press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. So make sure that this is centered so that we can have this properly aligned. So I'll zoom in here. Once I zoom in, just make sure that this is touching this point, and also we have this touching here. So now you can decide to group these two items together, or you can just leave this way if you're okay with that. So we're going to work on the next section. So for the next section, I'm going to add a frame here again. So after adding this here, I'm going to make sure that the color of this frame, I'm going to add the white color for this. And then the height here, I'm going to make that 780. So after adding the white background, I'll just make sure that this is aligned to this here. So make sure that it's covering this completely. So now let's add a heading for this, which is the Global Recognition Award. We can go back to resources, and I will look for that text here. So I have that here. Copy this, and then we can paste this here. That's in this frame. Then I can go back here and then look for the text describing the award. So I can copy this, Control A, copy, and then bring that back in here. So I can select this frame here and then paste this here. So before we continue, we can just rename this here to the award section. So we have award section. So which other layout is this? Please, this particular frame, you can press Ctrl X and make sure it's inside this hero section. I'm going to paste it in here. So let's try to align this. So make sure it's inside the hero section, so that if I close this hero section, you see everything is closed. We have award section, which is this section we are working on. And then the nav bar section, you see, we just have just 3 sections here. So let's add a button here before we start the arrangement. To add that button, I'm going to select this, drag this button, and then drop this here. So here we can add more about us, more info about us. So we can just drop this here, and we can just add some dummy text here. So this is going to be notable global awards here. So for this, I don't think we have a style for this, so I can just manually, let's just add some style in here. So we can detach this, and I will make this a semi bold, and we can keep this. Then let's grab our icons here. Let's go back to layers, resources, and I'll grab some icons here that I can use for my award. So shield, I have shield 2, badge, and then the trophy. Ctrl C to copy them, and then we can bring them here. Make sure you're selecting this section, paste this, and then drag it here. So these are going to be our awards. So press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. Then we can just space them properly. So 32 should be good. So we have 32. These are our notable awards. So I will still want to adjust this since we don't have a fixed size for this. So now we can arrange this column here. So to do that, I'm going to select the first one, second one, and then the button here. Press Shift A to group them. So here we can adjust the spacing between them. I'm going to use 32. So this also, I'll select them, Shift A, and then the spacing between them here, I can use 16 for this too. So here you can see I'm using the spacing to just show the relationship. These two items are related, so that's why they are closer to each other. So the next thing we want to do here is to add an image here. We're going to adjust the spacing between them here, but let's add the image. So now I'll come back here. I have the image here already prepared, so I can select this and then paste this image in here. So we just want to drag this image somewhere here. So if you select this our frame here, you see we are clipping these items to content. So I don't want to clip the items to content because I want this image to be outside this particular frame. So now we can select this item here since I'm having this. So I will just adjust, I will just drag this, or you can use the arrow key to adjust this properly. Then I'll also select this and then bring this closely here. So I can select these two items, Shift A to put them in an auto layout here. Then I'm going to just change that to 64. That's the spacing between them. So once we have this, you can, if you want to convert this to a row, you can press Shift A, and then we have these items in a row. And then this is how the design here it's going to look. Once we have this section done, the next thing we want to do is to work on this section. So to get started, we already have this here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to convert this to a component, which we've done that already. I'm going to add a variant for this. So this here, I'm going to change that. I'm going to detach this here. This is going to be 24, and I'm going to change this to semi-bold. Okay, we can use the extra bold for this. So don't worry about the size. We can select this component and then drag this here. So for this here, I'm going to double click as well and then change this to 28. 28 here. So now we can select this here and then just change it to style 2. Style 2 here. So we can now reuse this in our project. So to do that, I can come back here because this is what we want to create. That's this section. I can click on the assets file here and then drag this here. Then we can just quickly change that to style 2. So this is going to automatically fit into this style here. So if you see the style here is 24, the text is 24. So we just need to bring our text in here. So we can also adjust the spacing between these two items. And to do that, I will go back to the component here, which is this. And when I select these two items, I can reduce the spacing between them here to 16. So now we have this, and then we can change the color of this icon here to our primary color. So we can double click on this as well. So here, make sure you're targeting the selection color, and we can select this and then use the primary color for this. Now we have this variation here, and you see, simply it's just apply that here. So the next text we want to add is for this. So we can come in here and then select the layers and then go to the resource file and see if we have this text there. So I will grab this text, Ctrl C to copy, and I can bring that in here. Sorry, I will click on page 1 and I can paste that here. So let me select this and then paste this here. So now we can drag this out here, somewhere here, and then this title here. So let's see the color of our title. This is the color of our title, dark. So I can as well come in here and then select this text here. Then make sure where we have the white, I can select this and use our dark color here. So now I think we're good. So I can press Shift A to put these two items in an auto layout. Press Shift A. I have these two items inside an auto layout. So I'm going to use a fixed weight for this auto layout, which is 628. So I'm going to type that here, 628. And then we can add the background to this item. So I will be adding a fill. This time it's going to be white. So we have a white background already. So then the padding at the top here, I'm going to make that 40. And then the bottom, sorry, this is the left and right, then top and bottom, I'm going to also make that 40 as well. Then the spacing between the items, it will be 16. That's if we're having any. So I'll set that to 16. So we have 20 and then we also, 40 and then also 40 here. So now we have our design here. So the next thing we also want to add is the border radius. So to do that, I'm going to select this and then make sure the border radius here is 8. So we now have this, our style here. So the last thing we need to add here is the icon. To do that, I'm going to select this frame as well, drag this and then make sure that this is 80 by 80. So once I have this, I can just drag it somewhere here. So let me just change the color first before we do the dragging. So I'll change the color. Sorry, we are going to use the primary color this time. Again, primary. So we can add a border radius of 4 to this. So now you can just push this a little somewhere here. Okay, this aligns properly. So you see, if I keep dragging, it aligns to the center. So we need the icons for this. So I'm going to show you an easier way to do that. So we are going to select these icons here. These are the icons that we need for that section. So for these icons, I'm going to convert each of them to a component. So I'm going to select this, convert this, also do the same for this. So I'll show you why we need to convert this here to components. So I'll do this as well. So we can come back in here. So for this section here that I have, I want to make sure that this is a component on its own. So I can select assets here and say I want to use some resources here. So on the resources, I'm going to pick icons. So you see we have all the icons that I just convert to components. So that's why you see every other one, it's not here except this ones that are here. So I'm going to drag one of this and then drop this here. So I'll make sure that this is inside this frame 14. So you see we have this. So now I just align this to center, or you can use this direction key to align to center. So select this and then I will rename this to icon container. Then I can convert this to a component. So after converting this to a component, we can now create a property for this component. Select this item here and then you will see property. So it must be a component for you to get this. So I'm going to click on this. So here it's going to be an instance swap. So I'm going to add this instance swap here. So this is going to be icon. Then we can pick an instance from our resources. Then you see we have this instances here. So I will pick one of this, which is this item. Then I can just quickly create this. Now we have this our item here. So to use this item on our design, I just need to click on assets and then I can go back to our page 1 here. So you see we have this. So I can drag this and then drop this here with ease. Make sure that this is aligned. And after selecting or adding this, we can now select the whole of this item here. So I can select my text here and then try to adjust my text in here so that it just fits in here. I'm not getting the exact measurement, but this is manageable. So now let's click and drag, select these items here, and then we can put them in a frame so we can have our frame selection. So here I will just name this skills. Once we have this set as skills, you can as well convert this to a component here. So now this is going to be highly reusable. So we can just create our properties here. So this already, it's a component on its own. So we can change the text. So to do that, I will need to come back here to check if this has a property. So let me select this here. And then I can as well select this item here. Select these 2 items here. Then we can just click on this. So this is going to be our title. So that it's going to be easy to edit it here. So now let's just drag one of this item here and then drop it in and then try to edit that item. So I'll drag this and then drop this here. So I have the first item here and the text is supposed to be software development. So when I select this item here, so you see we can just easily change that here to software development. So I have this here. So for the icon here, we can keep the icon. So I'm going to duplicate this for the next one. So let's see how we can change the next icon. So I'm going to drag and align this here. So to change this icon now, I will double click here. So once you select this, you can now easily change this property here. So now I'll select this, double click to select this icon here. Once you select the icon here, go back to the right hand side. You're going to click on this, so you should be able to see these options here. So I can just select the icon I want and it changes that. Then I will select this section also, and then I will say we do API integrations. decoration here as well. So you see, it's now becomes very easy for us to go over it and edit this as well. So I will do this. So I have these two items here. I'll put them in an auto layout by pressing Shift A, and then make sure they are aligned to this. So I'll just drag this and then drop this here, and then select this, and then make sure that the spacing between them, not just individually, I will also check this here. This is aligned, so the spacing between them should be auto. So now if I come back here, you see it's already aligned properly. So now we can duplicate these two items, drag them, and then drop them down here. So the next title here, it's mobile development, so we just need to select this and then change this to mobile development. So to change the icon, you just double click on this icon and then look for your mobile screen here. So that's the mobile. So for this, I'm going to double click and select the icon here, and then make sure you're selecting the icon, and then I'm going to change this to analytics here. Let's see, analytics here. Okay, we've already used the analytics, so I will use the CMS here. So this is going to be analytics here. So we can as well do the other ones. Double click on this. So you can just, I'm quickly trying to rush this. You can just check what we have here and then quickly do that. So for this here, I'm just going to change that to software testing. So here we have software testing. So I'm going to select this and then change this to software testing. So we double click on this icon here. Make sure you're selecting the icon. So once you select the icon, let me zoom in. Select this and then double click to select the icon. So once you select the icon, you can just as well just pick whatever you want here. So software testing. So here, which is the last one here, I'm just going to double click and select this item here, then double click to select this. Then we're going to change the icon here. So I'm going to change that to timer. So this, we change this as well to project management here, project management. So we have this, our designs here. So the next thing we need to do is to make sure that the spacing between these items, it's the same. So Shift A, now we make sure that the spacing between them is the same. So I'm going to use 32 for this, for the spacing between each of this group here. So we have some things we need to add here, like the headings. So I will click on this and add, these are our specialties here. So here we're going to be using H1. So to do that, I'm going to select here this, and then we are going to look for heading 1, that's specialties. Then we need to add some of the text here to introduce the specialty here. So to do that, I'm going to click on the resource, the layer here, then the resources file, then check our text if we have any text for that. Any text starting with software, that will be our text. So we don't have any, so I'm just going to select this particular group here, copy, and then we can now bring it here to page 1. So I will select the text here and then try to paste this here. So I will manually have to break this. I can undo this. So to paste this, I'm going to select the text here and then just drag a space where I want the text to be contained, maybe somewhere here, and then Ctrl V to paste that. So I'll change the alignment to left, start from left to right, and then I can do this, and I can as well increase just a little bit of this so that we have 2 lines like this. Then we need an icon on this other side here, maybe a button. So that button, we can click on the assets and then drag this button here, and I will tell them we can see all our services. So let's change the button type here to the secondary. So here it's see all services. So we have this here. So these two, I'm going to align them by pressing Shift A, and I'm going to drag this here and then also drag this here. So the spacing between them, I'm going to set that to auto so that it's going to fill in everywhere here. So I can as well select this two items, press Shift A to put them here. So after having this section, we need to put them in a frame. So to do that, I can just select this and then add a frame here. So I can add a frame here. So after having these sections here, I'm going to select the frame here. After selecting the frame, I'm just going to drag and then drop it somewhere here. So we have all our items should now be inside this frame. So if I move this frame, you see, so we have these items inside a frame. So I can push this to make sure that it aligns with this properly. But let me do that again. Okay, now they align properly here. So we have these items. So I'm going to rename this frame here to specialties. Specialties here. Spelling might not be correct, but that would do. So we just have some sections. We have the nav bar, the hero section, the award, and then the specialty sections. So I think we're almost done. So we need to create this other section here. So I'm going to create a frame this time again. So this frame, I'm going to set the size, the height of this to 800. So the height of this is going to be 800. So I'll press enter here. Then we need an image and also a filter for this. So to do that, I'm going to grab the image here. So this is going to be our image, Ctrl C, and then I'm going to bring that back to page 1 so I can select my frame, which I can see at the moment. So let me select this design here. So I'm going to select this screen. So I'm looking for the empty space. Okay, I think I can find my frame. So I've added a frame here, but I can find it. So to actually check if the frame is added to this screen, so you can press Command Shift O. So for Windows, I don't know the command for Windows, but you can just click on this, then View. Then you can check Views, then where we have the outline, show outline here. Good. So this is the command now. So you can click on this. So here, show outline. So this is for Mac, Shift Command O. So for Windows, once you do this, you should be able to see the command. So actually the frame has already been added, but it's inside the specialties here. This is my frame. So I need to drag that out. So once it's out, I can press Command Shift O to bring my original screen back. So the image I copied, I can now paste it inside this frame here. So the image is the same size with this frame. That's why it fits in properly. So you see, I can just move this easily. So this is going to be a recent project here. Recent projects here. So now we just need to add a filter for this. To do that, we've already created a filter for this section. So I'm going to double click on this item till I select this rectangle here. So we can just change this to overlay. Let's rename that to overlay. So now I'm going to copy this and then bring it in here to paste it here. So all we need to do is to just adjust the height of the overlay here. And then you can as well adjust the dark colors here. If you want it a bit lighter here, you can just adjust everything here. So I'm going to create a card here. So to do that, I can select this and then add an ellipse first. So I'm going to add this ellipse here. So I'll make sure that this ellipse is 100 by 100. So once I've done this now, you can zoom into your screen and make sure you're getting this dot. So you can click and then drag this dot here. So maybe half of this. So now you have this ratio. So we can click and then drag this here like this. So now once we have this, you can press letter I. We're going to pick a color from this our image here. since we don't have that in our project. So we're going to pick this first color here. I'm going to select this. Then we can come back to our design here. So once we have this, you can duplicate this by pressing Ctrl D here. Once you duplicate that, you can highlight and then rotate this here. So but before we close this, press I again, and then you can select this other color here. That's the pink. Bring it back in here. So we can now align this together. Yep, now we have our circle back. If you zoom in properly, you get the best result. So we can just push this now. This is aligned. So I need to create another ellipse again here. So I will just hold shift and then make sure it's aligned to this here in the center. So we can drag this and make sure the color is dark. So this is aligned to the center. So the fill is going to be dark. Then we can highlight this together and then we can group them, Ctrl G. So what I want us to do here is I will just name this circle. So once you select this, right click, and then we can flatten this design here. Just makes it easier. See, it looks like it's a vector now. So I can easily resize this here to fit in with ease, and I can move this just one place at a time. So we now have a vector like an SVG. So we can drag this and then bring this back here so that we can see what we are creating. So now I have this design here for this, so we can resize this again to our taste. Then let's add a frame quickly here. Let's just add a heading here. So I will add a text here. This is going to be offline payment gateway. So after adding this, I can just change the heading of this here. So I can detach this. I think this heading looks okay. So the next thing is we need the text here. So I'm going to go back to our design resources here. Let's see if we have any text. So if we don't, we are going to just grab any random text here. So I'm going to grab this text here, Ctrl C to copy that, and then I'm going to bring that. I'm going to come back in here and then paste that text. So this, I'm going to select text here and then drag this here and then paste this. So we can align our text back to left hand side. Then we need our button. To do that, I'm going to select the asset, drag this here and then drop it here. So we can check, okay, view this case study. So here I'm going to say view this project. View this project. Here. So once we have this, we can do the alignments and then put them in one frame and we're good. So we have first item, second item, third item, and press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. So for this item, if you notice, there is an underline here and then a title here. So I'm going to do that here. So we said this is going to be a fintech company. Fintech company. So I can just do this instead of heading. We can just use a leading text. This, and then we can change this to one of our grays here. This gray. So once I have this, I'm going to add an underline here. To do that, I can use the pen tool here. So let's just use something different. Hold Shift and then make sure you're pressing Shift so that you can get a straight line. Then you can click done when you're done. So we can change the color of this. So let me do that here and then change it to one of the gray here. So I'll select this to put them in an auto layout by pressing Shift A. So now we can drag them and put them inside this group here. So after the offline, so we can put them somewhere here. So but now these two items need to be grouped together. Hold this Shift A, then we can adjust the spacing between them here. Let's say I'm using 12. So it makes it look like this here. So you can reduce that more and then you see the changes. So now let's add a fill to this. So I'm going to make this white here. I'm going to make this white. So here I'm going to be using a fixed width for this. So it's going to be 414 here for the width here. So we're going to add some paddings. I will be setting this to 20 here. and then here top and bottom I will also set that to 40 here. So for this text height here, this text I really want to reduce this, so let's see if we can detach this here, and then I will change this to 32. Okay, so we have this. So for this text here again, I'm going to reduce this here a little, so that if we can play with this here, make this 40, and then this is going to look better, something close to this what I'm having here. So now the spacing between these items is something we also need to work on, so I'm going to adjust the spacing between them here, make that 16, and then this looks good. And for our text here, I think we can do better, reduce the size to small, and then adjust this here again, and the spacing between these two items. Okay, I can double click, just drag this here to adjust the height here. So this looks good. So select this, and then let's change the border radius here to 8, and then we have our design here. So the next thing we want to do here is the line here. I'll double click here, make sure, let me go back to this assets, open this, and then make sure I'm selecting this vector, and then drag this here. Okay, so now we can select maybe gray light, the light gray here. So we have this, and then also for this as well, I can also change this gray here to something lighter. Let's see if this, okay, that's too much, so let's use the, let's use 700 here. So that looks better. So let's convert this to a component. To do that, I'm going to select this here and rename this to card. So that's a not a good spelling, so let me change the A here to a lowercase a. So we have this on our design, so we can click on the assets and then drag this and then drop it on our design. So I'm going to click on assets here, so drag this and then drop this in here. So you see we have this design here. So the next thing we also need to look at is the dots here. We have dots, and then here. So we just need to add them to this, and then we can continue with the design. So to do that, that's pretty easy. I think we have the icons here already. So I'm going to click on the layers and then click on the assets. So we should have this icon here. So I think we have the icon. So I'm going to copy this icon and then bring it back to page 1. So I can select this here and then paste this. So we have this icon. Okay, I will undo that. I'll drag this, open this, and then press Shift A to put that in an auto layout. So once we have that in an auto layout, we make sure that the height and width is the same. That's for the auto layout. So here, instead of hog, I'm going to just change that to fix, and then here as well it's going to be fixed, so that we can have the same thing. So I will just use 36 here by 36. So now in here we can now change the color of this. So to do that, I'm going to add a fill of white. Then for the icon here, when you select that, we can change the fill of this to primary. So now once we change that, we can add a border radius of rounded to this. So this, I'm going to make this 20 here. So we just need to align this to center. So to do that, I will be adding this, so I can manually align this here. So once we have this chevron, we can convert that to a component and then create a variant for this. So we can rotate this here. So let's say this is right, and then this is facing left here. So now for this, we need to face that should be facing, so let's see 180. That should be the opposite of 0. So we have these two items here. So once we're done with this, I think I observed that this is not fully white, so I'm just going to check some settings here. So I'm going to click on this and then check the layer here. So this pass-through is supposed to be 100%, so I don't know how it got to 70, so I'll do the same for this. Select this and then make sure it's 100%. If yours is 100%, then you're good. So now we need to go to the assets file here, then come to this section of our design and then grab this chevron here. We have a chevron here, so I'm going to duplicate this by pressing Ctrl D, then drag this here. Then we're going to change the direction here. That's the variant. I'm going to select right. After duplicating this, if we use the right section, I think it's not enough to rotate this because of the property. Figma doesn't support that. So I'm going to manually rotate this angle here back to 180 here instead of using the right, because if we use the right here, it doesn't give us any effect. So now I'm going to select these two items and press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. So the spacing between them, I'll make that 32. And then I can hold Shift to select this other group, press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. I think I'm having an extra item here, which I duplicate. So I'm going to select that item in particular and then delete it. So now what I want to do here is I'm going to extend the height of this here a bit. Then copy this portion here, Ctrl C, and then paste it here again in this. So I'll drag this and then drop it somewhere here. So now for this section here, I want to change this to our most recent project here. So this is going to be recent project. Recent project. And then we can just change this here to view project here instead of view service. So this one is view recent projects here. So we can just align this here to make sure that it fits the center. To do that, I'm going to select this group and then drag to drop this here. So make sure that the space in between them here is auto. So let me fix this here as well. Let me drag this here, push this here, and then make sure that the space in between them is auto. So that's fixed the problem. So now we have this section here. So we just need to make some little adjustment here. I'm going to push this downward a little, then select this group and then drag this here. So I'm going to select this and then push it somewhere here. So we're done with this section. So we want to add this other section here, which is the Y choosers here. So this is the portion we want to work on now. So I think I can click on this item here and then push this to the top here. So these two cards are not related. That's why we have to create this other card here. So for this is pretty easy. So I'm going to add a text here, which is 500 plus 500 plus here. So we can change this to H1. So to do that, I'm going to select the style here, and then I'm going to use the H1 for this. So after that, we can now add the styles for this. To do that, I'm going to add a text. So here, client already served here. So for this, we can reduce the size of this here. So I will use 24. Sorry, I'm clicking on the root section. So I will select this. I'm going to use the 24 here, which is the leading. So for this, I will have to detach this particular text here so that I can make this bold. So I'm going to detach this here, and then we can just use the bold for this. So this is going to be white. So let's quickly create this other component here. So to do that, I'm going to grab the Google logo. So let's go back to our layers and then click on resources, and I'm going to grab this logo here. Make sure you're clicking on this, Ctrl C, and I'm going to bring that here and then paste this here. So we already have the size set to 97 by that. So I'm going to add the text here, which is reviewed on. So here we have Google. So we can change the text style here. So I'm going to select this item here, and we can select 20 for this. And I think it's too big, the extra large. So let's use the large text for this, review on Google. So I'm going to keep this, and then we can add the reviews. So here we have 90 reviews on Google, 90 reviews. So this is going to be small, and I'm going to select the small tag here. Then for the stars, we can select this section here and then pick the stars. So that's 5-star rating. I'll hold shift to drag, and we can add a little border radius to our star. Let's see how it looks. Then we'll have to increase the size of this here to maybe 16. That doesn't look too good, but then it's manageable. And I will duplicate this and then drag this here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. So that's 6. So let me delete 1. So select this eyes here and then press I to select this color here. So we have this. Put them in an auto layout by pressing Shift A. So we have these items here, and we need to group these two together. 1, 2, Shift A. And we also need to group these two together. Make sure you're selecting the logo here and then select this, Shift A. We have this group 1, group 2. So we can now group these two items together by pressing Shift A. So we have our first group here. So what we're going to do here is to add a field to this. To do that, we can use this and then add degree 700. So after adding degree 700, we just need to add some paddings to this. So here I would make this 16. That's the padding on the left and on the right. So here we can use 12 here, top and bottom. So the border radius here, I will set that to 4. So let's quickly change our text here. So this is going to be white. So the fill here is going to be white, and this other one here again, it's going to be white as well. Now this is also going to be white, and then this is going to be primary. Once we have this, I can now try to create this my card here. To do that, I'm going to highlight over this item here and press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. So but before I do that, I think I can still select these two items here and put them in an auto layout by pressing Shift A, so that we have two groups. So the spacing between them, I can just reduce them, since these two items, like I mentioned earlier, the proximity, that's the spacing between two items to find a relationship, tells more if they are related. So right now I have these two items which are related, so the spacing between them should be okay. I'm using minus, I think it's still fine. So now I have these two items here. So now we have them in an auto layout. So let's add a field to this auto layout. To do that, we can click on this dot here and use the dark. Now I'm going to set this to a fixed width. So the width I'm going to be using here is 516. That's for the width of this art design here. So let me drag this here and then drop it here. So after setting that to 516, for the height I'm going to use 445 to 5 here. So now I can now align this item here and then here. So to do that, I'm going to set these items towards the center. So let me select this frame here and then align the items toward the center. But this is actually not what we want. We want them to be aligned towards the left hand side. Sorry. So now once we align this item here, we can now add some paddings to this. So for this, I'm going to add 40 for this item here. Once we've set the height of this, so let's play with the spacing between these two items here. So now I'm going to increase the spacing between these two items here. So now once we have this, I'm going to as well change that to, let's say, 64. I'm going to change that to 64 here. Then I think we are good to go. So we can now change the border radius here. I'm going to set that to 8. So now we have this item. You can select this and say, let's say, clients, and then convert this to a component. Once you do that, go back to the assets file, so we can click and drag it, then also drop it here as well. So for us to do that, I'm going to create a frame as usual. The height of this frame that I'm going to be using will be 800. So I'm going to drag this here and drop this here. So the height of this is going to be 800, and then the width is going to cover everywhere. So now this is going to be, the fill is going to be white. So we can now drag our item here and then drop it inside this section here. So I have my design here. So the next thing we want to create is the white section of this. So let's add the text. Let's quickly add the text here since they are not reusable. So here we're going to put Y, choose us here. So I'm using the H1 for this, so I can drag this here. So let's just grab a dummy text from the layer here. So I'm going to look for text here and then grab any of this text. So I'm going to copy this and then bring it back to this page here. Then we can select the text and then paste this here. So let's see if we need to adjust anything here, maybe the content of the text. So I'm just going to reduce that a little, just delete some part of the text here. So I'll just stop here, then try to center this text here. So I will center this and then this Y choosers and this, put them in an auto layout by pressing Shift A. And then let's adjust the spacing between them here. So I'm going to use 16. So we have this Y choosers here. So the next thing we want to create here is another card, but this time I am going to utilize the frame. So I'm going to select this and then quickly just do this in here. So after adding this, we are going to make sure that the fill is set to white, and we are going to add an effect. Let me drag this here so we make sure we're having the same height for this. So I'm going to add an effect to this. So to do that, I will scroll down here where we have the effect. I'm going to click on this dot. So we have the small effect here. You can try that with the other effects. So here you can decide to say you want a medium or you want large, but for this, I'm using the small effect that we created earlier in the tutorial. So now let's grab an icon that we are going to be using here. To do that, I'll click on the resources folder. I'll grab this icon, Ctrl C, and I'm going to bring it back to page 1. So here I will just grab, okay, what we can do here is to grab that icon, come back here. So for this particular icon here, we are going to convert that to a component the same way we did to this. So I'm going to do the same thing here, convert this to a component. We can come back in here. So we have a component, which is this. So I'm going to drag this and drop it in here. So now after dropping this here, I'm going to double click here. Make sure I'm selecting the icon here. You see analytic, then I'm going to select this item and then pick this here. So what we are going to do here is to detach this item from the parent so that we can be able to resize this properly. So you can right click and then detached instance here. So right now I can come in here and then double click on this and then change the size of this text here. So I can change it to 24 here, and as well I can also change the size of this here. So I can double click, then try to center this here inside the parent container. So we have this design here. So this, we are just going to go back to the resources and grab a lot of text here. So I'll grab this lorem text here. That's the leading. I'll just copy this and then come back in here. So I'll go back to page 1. So click on the text here and I will add my text. So here we can manage this here since we're not using an auto layout. And we can adjust this here and then set, instead of leading, I'm going to use the 20 for this here. So double click on this. When you hover over this, double click so that it's going to fit in to this. Then we can add the name here, again another text. So here I'm using Jaden Glazer here for the name. So here we can select the font family for this. So if I'm using the H1 here for this, Jaden Glazer, that looks too big, but then you can detach it here and then create your own customized name here. So we just need to add one last text here. So this guy here, we can add his position. So here, marketing specialist. At Codebox Global. Sorry, you can see the text, but let me adjust that here. So we can now as well reduce the size of this text here from leading. This is going to be small here. So you can change this to gray. So let me select this color here and I'm going to use gray here. So for these two items, I'll press Shift A to put them in an auto layout so that will maintain the spacing between them. So we have these two items as well. I'll put them in an auto layout by pressing Shift A. So the spacing between them is 28, then this one is 12. Then the two items here can be selected and then Shift A to put them in an auto layout. So I'm going to be maintaining 32 here. So we need to add an indicator here that you can actually scroll, and we also need to add that somewhere here. So let's go back to the image here and see. So here, do we have any indicator? So let's look at this. We have an indicator here, and as well we have an indicator here. So let's quickly create these indicators and then try to utilize them. And here we also have some arrows here. So to do that, I'm going to come in here and then create a rectangle. So this rectangle, I'm going to set the size height here to 4. This small, and then the width for the active, I'm going to set that to, let's say 16. Okay, that looks too small, so let's go double of that, 32. And then the border radius here, we can set that to 2 here. Then I can I can now duplicate this by pressing Ctrl D here. So I'm going to change the width of this to 4 here so that we can have the dots here. So I can Ctrl D to duplicate that and then bring it here. So we can convert this to an auto layout by pressing Shift A when you highlight everything. So it's going to space them evenly. So now the next thing we want to do is to convert this to a component. Once I've done that, the fill here, I'm going to choose the selection color and I'm going to change them to white. So now let's create an instance of this. So for this, I'm going to select this here and then change the white here to primary. So now we can rename this to indicator here. So now we should be able to add the indicators on our design. First, we need one here and then we need another one here. So to do that, I will go back to our design here. So we need one here, which is the white. So we can select assets here for the indicators, drag and then drop that here. So we have our indicators here. So we can arrange that so that it's going to align with this item here. So for this other one here, I'm going to drag this and then drop the indicator here. But this time we're going to choose the second variant so we can as well rename them. So let's look at the colors for this if we need to change the other colors here. So for this other variant here, for this we need to change these two colors here. So you can just select this item here where we have the white. We can just change them to any of this gray color here. So I'm using this, which is more obvious. So we can go back to our design now here and see if we have the design. Okay, we have that here, but that looks too dark for this. So you can just look for a color you can play around with. So for this, I can just use this to align them to center. You can just drop this here. So you can work on this and then get a better alignment than what we are having here. So the only thing you just need to do is to change the color of this here. So we can just use, so I'm going to select these two items, detach this, and then let me pick the color from the picture here so that we can have the exact thing that I'm having here. So I'm just going to zoom in and then the blur, I'm going to select this color here. So if I come back in here now, you see I'm having the same thing with what we're having on the image. So now we can as well just create the news section. So for the news section now, we're going to create a component, and then the component is going to have a variant. So I can push this other component far from this here. I'll just push this other one here, and then I'll push this here so that we can have spacing for other items to come in. So once I've done this here, we can now create this particular news cards here. So now to start this section, I'm going to grab some text from the resources here. So I'll be picking this first text here. So coming here, I will just paste that text here. So now the text has its property already, which is 24, and that is okay for our heading. Then we need to create a badge for each of this. So we have some types of badge here, the gray one, the white one, and then back to the gray. So to do that, I'm going to add a text here and then type in strategy here. So for this, I'm going to resize this, make this small. So to do that, I will select this item here and then use the small text here, which is this. Then I'll press Shift A here, and then for the margin at the top here, I'm going to resize that to 4. Then I will leave this way. So we're going to add a field to this. To do that, I'm going to select and then pick a grade 300 for this. So now I'm going to reduce the border radius here. I'll set that to 4 here, and I think I still want to reduce the margin at the top, and then bottom here I will set that to 2 here. So this looks okay for me. So this is going to be my tags, so I will just name this tags for every post. So now we can convert this tag to a component. To do that, I'm going to select this here. So I'll bring down this regulators here, then I will select this assets files and then look for my tag here, drag it and then drop it here. So this is my first tag. The next thing is we have this text here, which is the duration. So I'm going to add a text here. This is going to be 3 hours ago. 3 hours ago. So we are also going to set the fill for this to the muted here, the gray color here. So I'm using the gray 300 for that. So let's set the color here to gray, to just something darker here. So I'm going to use this, and then I just need to add a rectangle here. I can do that with a text, but let's just add a rectangle here. So I want it to be the same height with this. So let's add a rectangle here in between these two items, and I want it to be the same height with the tag. So this, the width is going to be 2, height 26. This is cool. And then I'm going to change the color to this here. So now we have these 3 items here. I'll also play with the border radius here. I'll set that to 2. Then I will select these 3 items, press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. Then let's play with the space in between them here. I'm going to use this. So now I have these items here, and we can do better. Let me adjust the width of this to 1 here. And I think at this point, I don't want them to be the same height. So once you've done that, you need to select this and then make sure that this is aligned to center, so that we have everything starting from the center here. So now once we have this, I need to go back in here to the resources and then grab this text here, Ctrl C to copy, and then I'll come back in here and then paste that text here. So once we have this text here, then we can group this designs together. So I'll hold Shift and then select these items and also these items here, and I'll group them pressing Shift A. So now the last item we need on this is this icons at the bottom. So here the next thing is to add these icons here. To do that, we're going to go to the resources file here, and I will select these icons here and press Ctrl C. I will select all these icons here. I will select these 3 icons here and then press Ctrl C to copy them, bring them into this page 1, and then I can just paste them here. So but that's not the direction we want them to be. Sorry, I think I paste them in the auto layout. So I will paste them outside the auto layout. So let me grab them here. So for this here, I'm going to add some text. For the first one, I will select this. Let's say we have 200 likes for this. And then we're going to set the size of this to small. Select this and I will set that to small. And then I will use the gray for this. So let me do this here. And then I can use the other gray here, which is the lighter one, this. So once I have this, I'm going to just duplicate this here, grab this, duplicate this here. So the here we can just as well arrange them together. Let me drag this away, then we have over 300 shares and then 200 comments. So let's just put 20 comment here. Okay, realistic. Okay, I have this here. So here, let me just change this to some numbers here. Okay, we have this. So now I can select these two items, press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. I'll do the same thing with this, Shift A. I'll do the same thing, Shift A here. I would have loved to create a component for this, but I did not. So I will select these three items here, make sure that the spacing between them it's even. So I will use 8 for this. Here it's also going to be 8, and here as well is going to be 8. So we can highlight these three items here, press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. Then the spacing between them, I'm going to convert that to 16. So now we have this card. So the next thing is I will just drag this frame into this here. So once we have that, we can now add a fill to this our frame. To do that, I'm going to select the fill, this icon here, and then add the white fill for this. Then we can now play with the border radius here, sorry, with the padding. So left and right, I'm going to make this way 40, and then here I'll also make it 40 here. So let's see if the weight is enough. So this is 69, and then we're good. So we can add some border radius to this. I'll be setting that to 8. So once we have this, now we need to create a variant for this. So here, news card. So I'm going to create a variant for this. To do that, I will convert this to a component and then click on the plus sign here. So at this point now, this is going to be primary. That's like an active one. So for this, we want to change the fill here. So where we have the white, I'm going to change the fill to primary. And then we can start changing. Where we have this color here, this is going to be white. So I'm just going to change the fill to white. This as well, I'm going to change the fill to white. Here, white. And I'll do the same for this. Here we have some selections. So I'm going to change that to, okay, we can use some gray here, gray 200, and this, I'll use gray 100 for this. So we have our second card here. So for this other item here as well, we can just select this, and then we can change the color to gray 100. We have 3 hours. So you can do as well as, play with this around. If you have another different component for this, we can just use another color for this strategy. So we can come in here to this strategy here, and then we can click the plus sign here to add a variant. So here, this is going to be secondary. So once we have this secondary, we just need to change the fill for that. So if I do this, I will detach this here. So I'm going to select the eyedropper here, and I'll look for the secondary color we use on our border here. So I will select this here. So once you do that, let's look for the strategy here. You see, we have this color, and then we can as well leave this way. So if you come in here and then select this particular one here, we can just change that to secondary just to fit into this design here. So once we have this, every other item here, we can just convert them to a property here. So I'll select this item, zoom in. I will make sure that we can use the multiple selection here. I will select this as well. You see, it's going to select this other item here, so that we can now click on this and then convert this to content here. Then for this other item here, you can select this, use the multiple selection here, and we can convert that to heading. So we're going to create a property here, title. This is going to be our blog title. Then here we can as well do the same for this, use the multiple selection here, and then we can convert that here, create a property. This time is going to be duration or hours here, or date. So once we have this, I think we are good to go. So we can reuse that. If you want to make this share reusable, you can as well create a property for each of this. So let's just do it with one of this. I'll select this and then I will click on the multiple property. You see it's selecting on the two sections. So here I will create a new property here. This is going to be likes here. So now let's go into our project and then add this section. To add the section here, I will create a frame here. Create the frame. So I am going to set that to 800 as usual. So I'll press enter for the 800. Then we can go back to our assets, then drag this our news card. So I'll drag the first one here. This is the first one. So I'll duplicate this, the second one, and then the third one here. So for this second one, we want to change this to primary. So that's the property. So for the text, let's say if I'm going back to this and I have this as my title, let's say this X space, let's copy this. I have that as my title and I come in here and I want to change this. Let me see if I'm not copying. Okay, good. I'm not copying the same text. If I want to change the title here, I will select this and you will see the title here. I can just delete this title and paste whatever I copied there. You see, we can easily change that. So for the likes here, we did that. We can come in here and change this to, we have 100 and let's say 29 likes here. Let's see, it's automatically going to change that. So this is a more convenient way to create reusable component. So now we can select these three items here, press Shift A to put them in an auto layout here. So once we have them in an auto layout, the next thing we're going to do is to add a title for this. So now I'm going to select the text here and then this is going to be news and insights. So for this, it's going to be H1. So I'm going to use the H1 for this news and insight here. So we can now create dots to show the user that they can actually, let's align this to center. We can create the dots here to show that the user can actually navigate. So to do that, we need to fix this here. The icon here is too big, it's too large. So now I'm going to select this item here. And then for the size of this icon, I'm going to lock this and then let's reduce the size of this so that it's going to be used everywhere on the project. So here, and then the branding, let's use the gray color here. So I think this this is great for the gray color. So for this here, I think I will delete this item. Let's select this first, duplicate this and then delete this. So for this, you have to select this and then rotate this manually here 180. So we have this. So we're going to utilize that for this other section. So I can come in here and then look for this, drag it and then drop it somewhere here. So I'm going to drop this here. This should be an auto layout. So let me put it in the auto layout here. So now I will click on this section so that I will align this to center. Let me select this here and align this to center here. So now I can also duplicate this item here. That's the whole item here. Let's go to layer. So I'm selecting this chevron. So Ctrl D here. I have this for the second time. So we can drag this here to this point here. Then what we need to do is the opposite of 0 here should be 180. So we are going to rotate this to 180. So now we have our design, and simply means we can toggle this left and right. So also we also need that somewhere here. Let's check and compare that with the image here. So this is our image. So let's see. Okay, we also need that here. So to do that here, I will just grab the copy we have here. That's this too. Ctrl C, I will copy that and I will select this particular section and then paste it here. So I'm going to bring it here. So for this item here, I will have to modify the colors. So for this, instead of white, I'm going to use the gray here so that we can see that. And I'll do the same thing for this here. Instead of white, I will change that to gray so we can see this as well. So I can drag this, but the moment I drag this item here, I think we group this in an auto layout. So I'm just going to select these items, Ctrl X, and then select this auto layout here, this auto layout, and then paste it in here. So now we can add an absolute position so that we can move this around. So I'll just drag it and drop it somewhere here at the top. So I think we have that section done. So the little touch here is to reduce the spacing between them. I'm going to use 16, and then we can still push this here. So once you add an absolute position, you will be able to move your items to the position you want inside an auto layout. So now we have that design complete, and you can as well mute this. Let's say you can play with this. If we have another color that is okay, I think that's the least we can have. So I think we're good here. So here, let's work on the footer section. So we need to adjust this a little here. So now let me add footer section for this. So I'm going to add a frame for this. So for the color we are using, we don't have that here. So I'm going to click on the plus sign for the fill. So I'll undo this here. So to add that, please, let's drag that from outside here. We don't want that to be inside any component. So just add a fill to this to get this white. So select this frame here. So for this frame, we can rename this to news and inside news. Okay, that's good. Here. So now for this other section here, we also need to rename it to why choose us. Why choose us here. So we have recent projects. So for this new section now here, I'll just make sure it's going to align with this. So we can drag this here and also here. So the height of this is going to be 450 here. So for the color, I'll press I. We can pick that from our image here. We don't have that color set on our design. So I'm going to use this color here. So we can now add our text here. So the first one is ready to get started here. So this, we can now change our text here. I'm going to use the lead-in for this. So once I have that, I can now change the color of this to this. Once we have that, we can now change the color to one of this gray. Let's try this here. So I'm using gray minus 300. So now we can add a text here, launch your project with us. So launch your project with us here. So let's change the size of this here. I'm going to use the H1 for this. Let's quickly add a button to this. To do that, I'm going to click on the assets. We have a button here. So here, let's see, work with us. Add a button for that. So we are good with this. We just need to align this item here. So I'm going to select this, and then Shift A to put them in an auto layout. So we work on the spacing between them. I'll set that to 32. So once we have this set to 32, we can align them vertically, then horizontally here. So now we are left with our footer. So to add the footer, I'm going to use the same step we've been using. So let's see if we can rename this quickly here. Launch your project, launch project here. So now we can add another frame here for our footer. So I'm going to add a fill to this, which is going to be dark. So we can just close this here. And then once this is closed, I think we can now adjust the height of this frame to fit into this. So now I have my design here, and this is my page here. So let's scroll down and then add the footer items quickly. So let's pick a random text here. So I'll just grab any of this text here. So I'll grab this lead-in. Okay, I think I deleted the text in the lead-in section. So I'll copy this, and that was a mistake. So here I'm going to add a text here. I'll paste this here. So let me undo this and then create a section where I want the text to appear. So let's say I want it to be within this container here. So let's change the color of this to white. So this is visible. Then let's create a simple input. So to do that, I'm going to add a text here. I'm going to add a frame here, since we're not going to be needing that. So we can use a fill of gray. That's this gray here. Then we can now add in some simple design. So I'm just going to create something that might be a bit different from what you're seeing on the picture. So I'll utilize our button here. I'll drag it and then drop it somewhere here. So now I will just tell the user to subscribe. So here I'll just say subscribe here. Okay, once we have this now, I'll just look at this. I'll change this to 58 here. So for our button here, we can as well increase the height here, and then just to fit into this. So we can increase the size of the button here, subscribe, so that we can have more spacing. So now I will tell the user to input their email address. So here, email address here. So we can drag this here somewhere here, then select this, and then let's change the border radius here to 4. So for the email address, we need to change the color. So I will select this and then use one of the gray here. So we have email address. So everything now it's inside a frame, so I can just move them away. So the next thing we want to fix here is the border radius in this section here. To do that, I'll double click on this button here, select this 4 dots here. So the border radius at the beginning, I want it to be 0, and also at the ending, I want it to be 0. So you see, we fixed that problem here. So, and the input field looks great. The next thing here is to create some links that we can use here. So now let me adjust the width of this design here. So I'll just do this, select this, and then adjust this so that we can fit in other items properly without disrupting. So here, I think our text here looks good, but we can, instead of white, let's use one of this gray here. So to add some links here, let's use the nav links that we have earlier. So click on assets. We should have our link here, the link text. So I'm going to drop this here, and then I'm going to change the color of this quickly to white for this. Now, after changing this to white, I can now duplicate this item here. So service, here we can just go for about. So here I will duplicate this to contact, select this, contact. Then here I can duplicate this, and then this should be my projects here. Project. So now that I have this here, I can select all these items and then put them in an auto layout by pressing Shift A. So we can align them from the left, which they are already aligned from the left. So we can drag this here somewhere here, and you can as well duplicate this for others. That's if you have enough links here. So but I will do this for just 2 sections here because I have what to add for the other section. So for this other section here, I can use one of the links here again, which is contact us. So here I will just use contact us. So I will change the color of this to white here as well. So this, sorry, that is not white, this is white. So I'll add a text here, which is beats star. Okay, we can just say hello at beatstar.com, hello at beatstar.com. So we can convert this to primary. Let's say the field here should be primary, that's the brand, primary. So we can hold Shift A, put this in an auto layout, start that from the beginning. Let me see for this now here. Let me double click, Ctrl X to copy this, and then I'll select this, duplicate this item here, then drag it here. So I'm going to paste my text here so that it's going to have a matching layout here. So easy, if I press Shift A to align them, it'll look better here. So this is going to be here, and then for this item we can just quickly change this to location here. So we can say we have an office in America. Here we have London. And here we have in China. So here instead of location we can just put office here. So now let's select this item 1 2 3, Shift A to put them in an auto layout. Then this is item 1. Here again another item here. So let's add a heading to this so that it's going to look better. So this is going to be newsletter here. So let's tell the user to subscribe to our newsletter here. So I'm going to Shift A to put these two items in an auto layout, and I space them to 8. Drag this down here. So now I can select these two items, Shift A, put them in an auto layout, make this 32. So now we can select this item here, Shift A to put them in an auto layout. I'm going to drag this to the end, and then the spacing between them should now be auto. So we have this here. So now we can have all right reserved, bit star 2024 here. So if you want to make this better, what we can do here is to utilize this space. We can just add a line here. So let's say I will just drag this and then create a line here. So the height of this line can be 2. Let's see, and instead of making that white, we just need one of the gray colors here. So now I'm going to select this one of the gray color here. Let me just pick one that is a bit darker, so we can just detach this and then play with this around. Just look for something more darker here. So once I have this, the only thing I need to do is to select this and then push this here, and I can reduce the size of my entire screen. So let me select this here and then try to adjust the size of the entire screen. So I have this, I can center this here. So if you're new to my channel, please you can hit the subscribe button. So let me also adjust this here. So now this is how you can create a professional website. For this here, we need to preview this and then fix one or two things. So now I'm going to click on prototype here, and let's add the prototype settings here. So now I'm going to be using this MacBook Pro 14-inch. So now I can select this and then try to preview this here. So now once we have this here, we want the menu here to be fixed. So we can click on this here. Make sure you're clicking on the menu here. So scroll with parent here, we can just see fixed here. So by the time we come back in here, you see we have our website here, and then the navigation bar is fixed. So if you're new to my channel, please kindly hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.